brilliant. I didn't know you could grab it as easy as that.
There we go. Yeah.
Cool. Right, I will start letting everyone in then, if you're ready.
Yeah, cool. I'll stop sharing for the time being. Let everybody get in.
Yeah.
If you want to do an intro, and then we can. Then yeah. I'll take over the screen.
Of course, yeah. Right. Oh, there's only 3 people. This is when I start to get a bit worried. Okay. Well, yeah, I wonder if we should wait.
We're right.
I'll start letting them in anyway, and then.
Are there any tweets or anything that I should be looking at doing during the break or anything to help promote the project?
Any what?
Any hashtags or anything like that we tweet out about the training? Could we ask people to do that?
To be honest, I think it's more about because if we start promoting it generally on social media, I'm a bit concerned then we kind of get random people wanting to connect. Yeah. And so, for example, we might get people who to do with renting issues and things like that. So I'm just trying to keep it a little bit contained. So I'll be asking people to tell others about the project when they know relevant BA/ME housing organisations and things like that. Yeah, I'm just concerned a little bit if we promote it too much, then we might get lots of people it isn't quite right to.
Cool.
Right, I'll start letting people in. Only 3, but hopefully they're all coming soon. Right, I'll start letting them in. Good morning, everyone. Lovely to see you all. I'm Toby from Ealing and Hounslow CVS, and I'm running a housing campaigning project that the aim is to give a voice to BA/ME and other vulnerable groups when it comes to housing. So thanks for joining me today. I'm just going to let some more people in the room as I'm talking. I was just saying to Jason, who's delivering this training, I'm very pleased not to be leaving the house today as it's such horrible weather. One of the few occasions when I don't want to leave. Right, so we'll just wait a couple more minutes and we'll just we'll do some quick introductions from people as it's a smaller group. But if we can just keep the introductions fairly quick, just because we've got quite a bit to get through today. So just seeing who else is coming. Right,
hi Toby, Michelle's here.
Oh, hello Michelle, how are you?
I've got camera down just to support connectivity.
Okay, cool. Shall we start with you, Michelle? Do you just want to say who you are and your organisation?
Yeah, Michelle Samuel. I'm the Vice Chair of ECLA, which is Ealing Council Leaseholders Association. And I'm here in respect of trying to see how our association of 4,000 households, not to say how many members there are, we can consult with them more proactively, especially during the pandemic.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks for joining us today, Michelle. Tom, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Tom Stockton. I'm the Community Engagement Lead at the Mulberry Centre, which is a cancer charity based in the grounds of the West Middlesex Hospital. And I've come on this course today because I'm already consulting with our users about how we've responded to the lockdown and how we've increased our services. And we, as a centre, we want to find out that. And that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I just would like some guidance on how to do that. So I'm afraid it's nothing to do with housing.
Oh no, that's fine. We welcome any other organisations to join us. It's just where the funding for this comes from is for Trust for London. And so we kind of target housing groups, but it's open to anyone. So welcome and thanks for joining. Lexi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Morning, everyone. My name's Lexi. I work at Housing for Women, and I'm paired with the Advanced Minerva wraparound service, who supports women who've been through the criminal justice system. And my role is I'm a specialist housing advisor for Advance, but I'm sort of community bridges in between the advanced key workers and local authorities and different community groups. So I just thought I'd come along today to hopefully learn it sounds probably more interesting than it is.
So where are you based?
So at the moment it's home working, but usually in normal times, I'm based in the Advanced Minerva hubs, which are in the north in Finsbury Park and the west in Hammersmith. So I kind of float around and just basically, I've just sort of float around the community being like, I go to various groups and I kind of keep my ear to the ground about various things related to housing, just because that's my advisor role. But I thought this was quite interesting because particularly if COVID decides to rear its ugly head again, it would be good to learn like how like our women want us to engage with them, what's been working, what hasn't been, and also I'm just thinking what else is on the agenda. Also just learning about consultations, because that sounds quite interesting. But thank you, so I'll stop now.
Brilliant, thanks for joining us.
I've got my hand up, sorry, just a quickie for Lexi. Lexi, is it housing number 4 for women? Is that how it originally was?
Yes, I know there's so many variations. So my email address is H4W, but then it's housing for women, like the word, and then some people go HFW. So that's the one.
I worked with your organisation about 8 years ago. Fantastic results. Thank you.
Did you? Oh yeah, you're welcome.
Right. Okay.
That's always good to hear.
You.
Cheers, Michelle.
Shanji, do you want to just say hi?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Shanjit from Sunshine of Hounslow. We are trying to improve lives people with a disability, elderly, mental health, and crime victims and unemployed women and families as well. So this course will help me to understand more how we can support the community with the housing issues as well, because it's quite a problem at the moment.
Okay, lovely. Thanks for joining, Shanji. Chris, would you like to say hi?
Christian, I am a psychology student and I just graduated, and I'm also doing a master's in medical neuroscience, and I work for GoSAD. It's a charity that also is looking into mental health at the moment, and we're looking at people with mental health and housing issues. As we know, there's loads of issues with them trying to, live within the community.
Okay, lovely. Thanks for joining us. I'm just seeing if there's anyone else I haven't introduced. Well, only, of course, Jason, who's going to be delivering this. Jason, do you want to say hi and take over the controls now? I'm just seeing if there's anyone else waiting.
Yeah, thank you. First thing, a little check. Can everybody hear me okay? Do I need to turn my volume up? Everything all right? Thumbs up? Yeah. Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you. Right. Okay. Can everyone see the screen all right? Yeah, that looks like a yes. Okay. My name's Jason Martin. I am the founding director of, there we go, founding director of CAP Enterprise. I'll do a little introduction once I've run through the running order of what we're going to do today. So this is going to cover, and thankfully, in your very succinct introductions rather, you gave me a really good insight into what you want to learn. So I've avoided the need to ask that question. So the good news is that everything that you've highlighted, we will be covering. So I've anticipated it reasonably well. It's pretty much a general introduction to the range of methods and techniques and approaches that you can take with consulting with your beneficiaries and with your communities. I've got over 20 years experience of market research, which also includes community consultation. My first role in the voluntary sector, which started, let me think now, it's coming up for 18 years ago, was off the back of a community consultation that I was involved with, where it was an initiative run by the Countryside Agency, who were a government-backed agency. And the idea was to reinstate the role of market towns within their rural setting. So the market towns traditionally being a bit of a service centre. It's where people that lived remotely in a rural area would come to for their banking, for their food, for their social activity, all of that. And we went out and did a big community consultation exercise, and came up with a list of 68 community projects from that, which were all requested by the community. And they were themed around things like transport, job creation, employment, social activities. There were things like wanting mains drainage installed in the market town because everyone was working on cesspits at the time. So it was a really, really broad consultation, and the projects that came out of it were fascinating. My role was to help with the community consultation and then to support those individual projects off the back of it as well. So my first role really in the sector was with that. Subsequently, community consultation, monitoring, evaluation have been sort of significant parts of my career in the sector. And having worked a lot of work in business development within the voluntary sector, getting information back from the people that we're there to serve is absolutely crucial. So I've developed a degree of expertise in that. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to share some of my experience. We're going to run through the basics. You will walk out with a load of takeaways, different things that you can try. And just at the end, little ideas section there, we're going to have some cheeky ideas, some really creative and interesting ways of just talking to the people that we're there to serve, our beneficiaries, our clients. For the simplicity of the workshop, I'll call them clients. I know we all refer to the people that we support differently. For the purpose of the workshop, I'll refer to them as clients. That final section will be looking at some good practice and some ideas that we could use to just be a bit creative and a bit eye-catching in the way that we go about community consultation. You'll see on the running order, there's a break in the middle. I'm not proposing that we shut down Zoom, just saying we'll have a 10-minute comfort break. People can go off and do what they need to do, refill their drinks or whatever they need to, but that will be in the middle. So that will probably happen after about an hour and a half. The only other thing I'd say on the running order is, has everybody got a sheet of paper and a pen? Because you are going to be designing live a consultation. So it's a bit of an action learning type session as well. So if you haven't, grab a bit of paper and a pen, because what we're going to do is you're going to design a consultation as we go. But it'll be fun, there's no pressure. But what I will do is I'll invite you to reflect back on what you've done on each session. Any questions at this point? No? Okay, cool. We've done the introduction, so we can ignore that bit. I'm a bit of a stickler on my workshops that we all kind of go into the same mentality and the same approach, because that way everyone's expectations are managed. So if everybody can just mute their microphone, please. If you do have a question at any time, just unmute it and interrupt me. I've got my volume up loud, so I will hear you if you interrupt. Share expertise. If you do have experience in a particular area of consultation, if there's something that you've experienced of, share it. Share that experience. Let us know what your perspective is on all of this. Again, just interrupt me if I'm in full flow, because actually I want this session to be as interactive as we possibly can. If you think about it, my experience of community consultations is only from my own perspective. You will either as being a participant or someone who's actively been involved with it, will have different views on it, and let's hear them, let's share them. So let's all be really interactive as much as we can. Respect the opinions of others. I don't want any arguments. I've delivered some workshops where we have had people falling out. That's not going to happen today, is it? No. Good. And the final one is Chatham House rules. For those that don't know Chatham House rules, I would like you to feel that you can share potentially sensitive information, safe in the knowledge that every single participant will not attribute anything that you say to you or to your organisation. So, for example, if Lexi were to say, well, what we do is such and such, and it's a little bit controversial, we may wish to relay some of that back to our colleagues, but it would be anonymised. It wouldn't be, oh, Housing for Women do this, or Lexi said this. It would be, actually, what we've heard from another organisation is such and such. It relies on trust. We're in this together. We're in it to learn together. So, yeah, Chatham House rules apply. If anybody's unhappy with that, please unmute their microphone and say so now. Hey, brilliant. Deafening silence. Fantastic. That's what we want. Okay. I'm a great believer that we need to have a foundation of understanding before we can get really good at something. We need to understand the basics. So can anybody put forward a definition, a suggestion on what we mean by community consultation? Anyone happy to sort of put forward an idea on that?
I would say a community consultation is an opportunity for a resident group or a group of residents to have a say in decisions for their community. Is that not what it is?
That's certainly part of it.
Right, thank you.
Anyone else? No. Okay.
Getting communities' ideas, to gather communities' ideas, what are their views as well?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, oh, sorry.
Go on, Chris. No, Chris, carry on.
I was just going to say, I thought consultants were meant to sort of also oversee certain things and procedures were put in place as well, just to use our sort of knowledge and experience to help enforce that. Because as a consultant, someone's coming to you to make sure that, you know, they're looked after rather than going to someone else. So I thought a consultant was to consult, to provide structure.
Yeah, yeah. It's the next definition really explains it pretty well. It's taken from the University of New South Wales, who do a lot of community work within their business faculty, and you can read their definition there. I won't be reading from the slides as we go through this. You can read that.
May I take some notes on that? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Take notes. Toby's recording this as well. I'm going to be sharing it with everyone. I take it, Toby.
Yes, that's exactly right. I will edit the video a bit, and we can send the slides around afterwards as well.
So actually, with that in mind, Chatham House rules might not apply. Don't share anything that you feel might be too sensitive.
Yep, good point.
So for me, I think this definition really sort of encapsulates a three-stage process, which sort of picks up what you've put forward so far in your suggestions. For me, the first part is that it's a participatory process. You are inviting people within the community to get involved. You're inviting them to take part, to have some form of ownership of it. So it's about creating a process whereby they can input. I've been involved, not in a professional capacity, but in a personal capacity, with developments and regeneration programs where developers have come in and said, oh, your lovely old cinema, we've got a master plan for that. And what we're going to do is, and they're almost presenting it as a fait accompli. I don't see that as a consultation. I see that as a sort of marketing exercise just to explain to people what they're doing. I've done a lot of work in Folkestone down on the southeast Kent coast. And again, for those that don't know, that's an initiative to invest significantly in arts-based regeneration. And it's being funded completely uniquely by a man called Roger DeHaan, who used to own Saga, the over 50s company. He sold that back in, I think it was 2001, something like that, and made several billion, but made a commitment to invest in the regeneration of Folkestone through arts. And Roger came up with the master plan, and Roger presented his master plan, and Roger actively promoted his master plan. And one of the problems was that the local community were not engaged with it. They weren't consulted. They were told, they were informed. They didn't feel that they were participating in this redesign and this overhaul and this regeneration of Folkestone. So actually, I think that first part, the participatory process, is really important, that you need to make people feel that they are part of that process, that they are involved. So the first part of the definition for me is people need to be actively involved in it. The second part about articulating their concerns and their ideas, I think is really important. There needs to be the space. We need to create a space for them to communicate. So not just listen, but to actually talk to us as well. So be involved and be invited to talk and share opinions. And the final part, which quite often is forgotten when people think about consultation, is responses and ideas, solutions. I think actually a lot of the time, if there's an issue, or if there's a problem or a challenge within a community, quite often talking to the community, they will come up with a solution. They will find a way of addressing that issue. They won't be constrained by policy or by dogma. Quite often people go, well, actually, this is to it. Quite frequently, from my experience, the solutions to that problem do lie within the community. And if we don't ask them to share those solutions with us, then actually we're missing out on a massive, great resource. So for me, community consultation is 3 layers. Get out there and create a mechanism for people to share their ideas, but be sure to ask them, so if this is the problem, this is your opinion, what can we do about it? In a nutshell, that's I think that, for me, that definition it encapsulates community consultation really, really well. The next one that I've got is from here in the UK, and this is West Dunbartonshire Council, and this relates to their commitment on their housing policy. Again, it's that involvement, it's that participation element. They're focusing here very much on council tenants. Getting involved about decisions. So that's kind of moving into sort of like advocacy, getting people to be able to, the consultants are advocating, creating mechanisms for people to share their ideas and opinions. And also the fact that it is now normal practice within social housing. So if you are not connected in with your local RSL, registered social landlord, you're not connected in with local housing associations, get involved in some capacity, talk to them, say that you've got clients who would want to input into consultations, be part of, let them know that you've got an audience, because they will want input from other partners. They're saying it's normal practice, so there will be opportunities to be involved in community consultations. So that would be my first action. My first takeaway is know who your local social housing provider is and have a conversation with them. Okay, this is a definition from a different perspective. Letterbox Media are a PR and comms agency, a private sector organisation who do a lot of work with developers, commercial and domestic developers. And actually you can see a bit of an insight into how some private sector companies view community consultations. And I think this is the cynicism that comes from that side coming through loud and clear. I'll just give you a couple of minutes or a minute or so just to read through it. Just be interested to sort of hear what your conclusions are about what's written down there. This is actually a piece of advice that they have on their website that they give to prospective clients. Any thoughts from anybody on what you're reading there?
I think it's interesting their use of the word support. They say support twice, which suggests, and I was going to ask this question, it suggests they have a view and they want to get agreement with it. And how do you feel trying to gain people's support for the point of view you want to put across is a part of all of this? I mean, should you go, well, no, that's the wrong question, but how do you feel if someone goes into a consultation with a point of view they want supported as a result of that consultation? Because I think it will infect any questionnaires you draw up. I've got some experience in questionnaire drafting, and it drives me mad when you get questionnaires which have 5 positive statements and sort of 2 negative. When you skew it like that, it's very obvious what you're asking for.
I agree completely. That's my interpretation of this, and I think it's cynical. It's how do we get them on our side? How do we get them to say yes? How do we present a fait accompli to them so that they will just go, well, yeah, it's great, it's fantastic. This is just about gathering evidence of need for whatever it is they'll be presenting, whether it's a master plan, whether it's that for me isn't community consultation. That's presenting something that's already closed off. We know what we want to do. We've consulted amongst ourselves. We've gone through our financial modelling. We know what we're trying to achieve with this. We just want the community to rubber stamp it, really. I think that is what this is all about. And for me, that really misses some of the key components of consultation, which is the ideas from the community, keeping it open, saying, actually, tell us what the solutions are. This is what we think it might be, but what else could it be? Yeah, I'm not a fan of this, and I wouldn't consider this to be proper consultation. Any other views on it?
I wanted just to ask, what do you think that is a definition of then, if it's not consultancy? What would you say that you would say this is a definition of?
I think it's I suppose the first part of my career was in the private sector, and I have worked with PR agencies. I've not worked for one, so don't feel too negatively towards me, but I've worked with some PR agencies who will spin and spin and spin and spin an argument. And I think Letterbox Media are a PR agency, and I think this is just a PR campaign with a little bit of pseudo consultation thrown in, but actually it's just to say, well, we consulted with the community. They didn't. They just asked the community to approve what had already been decided on. So yeah, I would put this under PR.
Because this is obviously the first time since I'm seeing that, and I saw that, and I had to read the bit where it said something about inspiring simmering negativity. That was the quotation I picked up as something very interesting. I thought, hang on a minute, I wanted to make sure the top bit said consultation, and so I was very confused. I thought, what are they sort of? Yeah, it was complete. I agree with both what Tom and you said exactly about that, and especially I do have also experience in questionnaires as well. I mean, my whole degree is based on psychometric testing. So yeah, we do get that bit where they got loads of positives and then they prompt you with 2 flankers and then 1 negative. It's kind of obvious what they're asking. So yeah.
So if oh, go on, carry on.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask a quick question, because when it comes to consulting, so if you're working at an organization and senior management are asking for a consultation from your like service users and your clients, so let's say like senior management identify an issue where it's like in COVID, we need to reopen the centres so that our clients can come in and key work with us. So you're like, right, let's go back then. And they like ask the service users. So then if you talk to the service users with like a community consultation aspect, and the overriding opinion is, no, we don't want that. But then you've got senior management who have one opinion and the community have another. How do you literally in the middle then navigate that? Maybe a bit of a like, how long's a piece of string question, but
that's a toughie. It really depends upon how client-led the organisation is as a whole. I've worked with some charities that say we're a client-led organisation and we do everything for our clients and it's all about positive impact for our clients. And then they make decisions that actually clearly are not driven by the needs of the clients. They're driven by the needs of the organisations. And I have to say, working within a charity, particularly a grant maintained charity, there are times when you have to make decisions that actually are for the well-being of the charity and not for the well-being of, or not in the best interest for the clients. And actually there is that constant trade-off between. But actually what you find over a period of time, that you tend to see a bit of a culture developing where it's actually, no, we do make decisions mostly driven by the needs of the clients. But then you find others that kind of go, actually, no, we're just about sustaining our own organisation. I had a bit of a stand-up argument in a workshop a good few years ago with a lady who said to me, well, yes, it's all very well and good what you're suggesting, but actually I've got 5 mortgages that depend upon the decisions that I'm making in our charity. I said, whose 5 mortgages? She said, my 5 members of staff. I have to do things that are right for them. And I said, you're forgetting what your charity is set up to do. Your charity is set up to support this group of clients, not these 5 people over here. And actually, there is that constant trade-off between the two. You need the resource to be able to support people, but you've got to remember that people are the reason the charity is set up and the reason you exist. So I suppose, Lexi, to answer your question, it's really that culture and how much you listen to what clients are saying really has got to come from the board and from the senior management, and they have to embody that value in their decision making.
It's true. And what about, sorry, just a quick follow-up, and what about if your community consultation is your workers, like that's the pool you're consulting? How do you, if there's sort of, again, if we use the same example, particularly like in COVID times, of we're asking / telling you to return to work, but the workers are going and they're like consulting everyone saying, oh, you know, how far do you travel? What do you think? And then ultimately, if the overriding opinion is no, but the opinion of SMT is still yes, you will go. How would you navigate that? Or just thoughts on it generally? You can ponder and come back if you like. Bit of a tricky one.
I did. My reaction to that is probably not one that I would recommend. I can be quite forthright when I'm employed by someone, and probably my opinions would not be very well accepted. So I think calmly and openly communicating the reasons for it and saying, actually, you've got a duty of care as our employer to us. If we feel that that's potentially being impacted on, then you need to be made aware of it. Which is probably a softer way of dealing with it, through to more radical responses, which is, well, I'll be working from home, I'm sorry, I won't be coming in.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's hard. I mean, I suppose if you put the effort into asking the question, you need to be prepared for the answers that come back. and you need to respect that process, that actually if you do consult with anybody, you've got to be ready to take on board what comes back and be prepared to act on it, because otherwise future consultations will just become a sham. They will become pointless, and they won't be engaged with, and people won't bother with them. So I think it's important that actually the action element, you know, you said we do, it is an important part of the process.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very interesting. That helps a lot. Thank you.
I wonder if I could ask Lexi, is that okay? Am I allowed to ask other I don't.
Just this once, Chris. Yes, of course you can. Yes, of course.
Sorry, it's my first time here. I just wanted to know, is that were you referencing like a top-down approach in terms of the SMT?
Yes.
All start at the top, and we would hopefully, if everything was in the way we wanted, it would trickle down, and it would all be like, in a way, rather than being bottom up, which is that we have to go up and up to cause a change, but rather it should be a bottom down, where the change should come up the top.
Yeah, so I think I was thinking just generally when so senior management at then the top would consult down to workers, and then so I guess it's kind of like a circle or like a cyclical thing, because like SMT would ask like down in the hierarchy to workers, and then the answers and the changes would filter back around to senior people, as well as the changes affecting the workers on the like bottom in air quotes of the hierarchy. But yeah, I think if I understand your question, the question initially comes from the top to then go down, as opposed to workers requesting going up.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's what I thought. Yeah, thank you.
That's okay, no worries.
I mean, that's a really important point, I think, within an organisation as well, that actually, and outside of the organisation as well, that actually there needs to be a mechanism for client feedback and for community input. There needs to be that open door of actually, you know, look, you need to be communicating with us. It's very easy for organisations to become very isolated and self-serving if they don't have that open dialogue mechanism. As a line manager, you know, I make it clear to everybody, look, if there is ever an issue, talk to me. There will never be a bad time for you to talk to me about something that needs resolving. Or if you've got an idea for a new way of working, you can always come and talk to me. It doesn't matter how busy I am. If you expand that over an organisation, there should always be some mechanism for people to feed back, whether it's through monitoring and evaluation. Cue a plug for the workshop we've got coming up. You know, monitoring and evaluation is really important to gather information. It's a way of ongoing consultation with the people that you're there to serve. Yeah, just keeping that dialogue going without being focused on a particular subject, which is what a consultation would be. You look at a particular issue, but just general lines of dialogue being kept open, I think is really important for any organisation to avoid becoming isolated and therefore self-serving, and then potentially, you know, drifting off mission and so on. So yeah, comms is really at the big part of this. And this is, for me on this, to pull it back to this slide, I think this is just about telling. This whole stance on this is about, let's tell and then just get the proof that we've gone out there and spoken to them. It's not about the listening. It's not about the inviting opinions in, which for me is crucial with any consultation. So it's just, it is a PR exercise, this one. Okay, next one. Good old Wikipedia. Always good for a dodgy old definition. The public's input on matters affecting them is sought. I quite like that part of it. Its main goals are improving the efficiency, transparency, and public involvement in large-scale projects or laws or policies. So actually, it isn't just about housing. It isn't just about how we do our work in the sector. It's actually consultation is a crucial part of setting strategy, lawmaking, changing practice. It's a really important tool any organisation should embrace. In some cases, legislation dictates that there needs to be consultation. If you think about public service procurement, when local authorities go out and buy public services, They do a thing called market engagement. That's one form of consultation. They go out to potential bidders who want to bid to deliver the services or to help shape those services. That's a form of consultation. So actually consultation really is, it does cover quite a lot of areas. Okay. So the reasons to consult, I think we get better results. I think if we don't just isolate ourselves and make all of our decisions, I think we get better outcomes. So let's say, for example, that the old cinema in my hometown, a developer wanted to take it on and turn it into a department store. So they ran a little pop-up in the local shopping centre, and they invited people in over 3 weekends, I think it was, to come and talk about their idea for it. Universally, because I was working on a project that had a different idea for that cinema at the time, universally, the feedback I got from the people that were sent in was that there was a lot of aggression towards the developer about the proposal. And what they were suggesting added no value really to the local community. It created a few jobs, but actually it was a cultural icon. It was a cinema that was built in 1927. It was a real architectural feature of the town. And people really valued that contribution that it made. They didn't want another department store. They didn't feel that actually it had anything to basically just rip the fascia off it and put a glass and steel fascia on this beautiful old 1927 building. So actually, the developer, to their credit, took that on board and said, okay, we want to use the building, it's ours, it's costing us a lot at the moment, we want to bring it back into circulation. So we want to work with local people to find a solution, something that's viable. And actually what they're working on now is a mixed use of that particular facility. And what they found is actually by talking to the community, they're getting a better financial return as a result of the feedback that they've had. So actually, sometimes presenting a master plan and getting a very negative and quite hostile response to it, if you react to it in the right way, and you say, well, okay, clearly what we're thinking isn't right, tell us what it should be, you can get much better results for the community, for the clients that you're there to support. Consultation allows you the opportunity to test an assumption as well. I'm currently developing a business idea through CAP, working with prisoners. And we've been in prisons for the last 3 years, consulting with people who have got a custodial sentence about this idea that we've got. We've spoken to 300 people who have all input ideas into how we can do things different with that particular business model. We're now at a stage where our assumptions on how this business would work have now changed radically. And actually, we tested what we assumed we would need to do, and what we've got back is very different. So we've radically changed our business model. So actually, consultation, asking for ideas, creating a mechanism for sharing information really can help with that. When it comes to development, better land use can be one of the outcomes of it. If you've got a piece of land and you just go in with a certain attitude, there are no guarantees you're going to get the best out of it, actually. So land being at a premium, particularly in the area where you're all located, I think involving the community, you can get more out of it. Consultation can improve housing stock. It can make the availability of good quality social housing better. It can improve in those areas, certainly. When it comes to designing client support programs or activities or projects, it's a really good way of identifying upcoming problems. As I say, having worked in business development and fundraising, a big part of what you do is coming up with ideas for new projects. A bad business developer or fundraiser or someone who's going to write a grant application will just empty what's in their head onto that funding application form, will send it in. If they're lucky, they'll get the money, but then they've got to deliver the damn thing. And actually, by not asking about what could go wrong and talking to the people project is aimed at, you might find there are all sorts of practical barriers that you've not thought about, that actually suddenly the whole project is not deliverable. And then you've got to hand the money back to the funder. The funder might be unhappy with it. The funder might say, don't darken our doors anymore because we've given this money to you that could have gone to someone else. We're not happy about it. And it could be killing off a particular funding stream by doing that. So ask the beneficiaries, ask the prospective clients, get them to input, because that shows A, that there's a need for it, and B, it will help with designing the project as well, so better outcomes. Through consultation, you can identify champions or allies within the community. There could very well be sort of faith leaders, there could be community gatekeepers, there could be people within the community that by just simply going out and asking their opinion, they become a friend and they want to work with you and they want to help when you're undertaking this particular activity. So at this time, when we're all under pressure, when demand is going up massively for us to be supporting people in the community, when the environment in which we're working is getting harder and harder, having friends is really important. And one of the best ways you can do that is by asking people what they think about your ideas. Consultation can create demand. I've developed programs in the past, and one of them was a thing called the Enterprise Gateway. It was an enterprise program based down in southeast Kent, and we wanted to know what type of program we needed to deliver. So we went out, we ran a series of community consultation exercises, community events basically, and we said to people, look, if you wanted to work for yourself, what would be the things you'd want help with? And what we got off the back of that were not just a load of ideas, but we also got people saying, look, tell us when you go live, because actually I really do work for myself and I'd like some help. We created a waiting list. We created a list of people that wanted to work with us and get the help. So again, consultation can help create demand. I think it's crucial for community development because it does pull people in. People do want to get involved off the back of things. They do want to share their opinion, and actually it just makes the whole machine of community development work much more effectively. Consultation exercises can get people to come along, not just as champions, but volunteers. I love this. I want to get involved. How can I get involved? Tell me when you're up and running and I'll come and give them a time. It's good social capital as well. Section 106, would anybody like to share with the group what Section 106 actually means? Does anyone know?
Isn't that where developers have to give money towards community spaces?
Yeah. Section 106 in a planning application is where a developer who is taking a property development over a certain size, and it can be commercial or it can be housing based. They have to say in Section 106 how they're going to pay back the community, how they're going to give something back to the community. And ultimately it's a financial measure, but it can be given back in kind. So for example, there's a development that I know not far from here on the side of a village, and their Section 106 commitment was to build a doctor's surgery. I've seen others in areas where they've built schools. I've seen others really badly. In the area where I was doing the market towns work, their Section 106 paid for some traffic lights to be put in at a busy road junction, and that was off the back of a major Sainsbury's development. A local Sainsbury's was built, and their Section 106 commitment was to put some traffic lights in that cost them about £30,000. As a result of Sainsbury's being built, they basically killed off the high street that was all independent little retailers. So they killed that off, and their compensation to the community was a grand's worth of traffic lights. So every time there is a development being undertaken of a certain size, they will be trying to get ideas for Section 106 activities. You know, what should we put our money into? What is the need? Where is it? So consulting around Section 106 is another thing called community infrastructure levies as well. They're similar things. developers will be consulting because it will give them potential ammunition to get a planning application pushed through. Now, there are consultants out there, and I know because I was at a wedding a couple of years ago with someone who was a Section 106 consultant, and their remit is to try and put into that Section 106 as little money as they possibly can, but to put enough in that when it goes in front of the planning committee in the local council, that they will actually say, well, that's not a bad Section 106. We think, therefore, we should support it, as well as the wider implications of that development. So for some developers, consulting around Section 106 is quite an important thing because it gives them some useful information that they can use when they're pitching their development.
Yeah, I've always been a bit confused between the difference between the Section 106 and the SIL.
Yeah, I was under the impression that SILs were coming in to replace Section 106,
Yeah.
but I'm still hearing of people saying, yeah, no, we've got some Section 106 money. We're doing really well.
And then
with
I think certain councils, they build up 106 funding, which they haven't spent, which is like can only be spent in a certain area. So I know in Hounslow, there's a huge amount of development in one area, but the funding 106 money can only be used in that particular area.
Yes, yeah, that's right. That's right. That sounded like a new voice. Is there someone else who's come in?
I've been here a while.
Okay, sorry.
It's my colleague Ian.
Sorry, I should introduce my Ian and Hounslow CVS.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you for the input. Welcome. I mean, for me, one of the few business books that I really rate and that I would suggest you look into. It was written back in the 80s, and it was called In Search of Excellence, and it was written by two American academics, Tom Peters and I keep thinking Dennis Waterman, but he was in Minder, wasn't he? No, it's not Dennis Waterman. It's certainly Waterman anyway. And they did several years of consultation with so-called excellent organizations, companies, NGOs, multinationals. And what they did was they came up with a list of behaviors of excellent organizations that performed well, that were recognized as being excellent in their fields. And the number 2 on that list was it's called staying close to the customer. And actually, for me, that's probably the main reason why we should all consult. We should all create opportunities for our clients to feed back to us with ideas on challenges, issues that they've got, but also on solutions and recommendations that we then act on. Because actually, we are there for them and we need to keep them involved. And we need to ensure that others that are doing work that will affect them, that we need to ensure that their voices are heard as well. So for me, that book, that behavior of staying close to the customer is the single reason that we should be consulting. You know, that almost supersedes everything that we've got listed there on that slide. You know, we need to stay close to the people that we're there to serve, because the charities are set up to meet the needs of those people, and we've got to do that. And if your organisation doesn't, have a bit of a look at yourself and think, how can we do things differently? How can we get those clients' voices heard more within our organisations? Sounds a bit idealistic, but actually, I'll tell you what, the organisations that do that and do commit to that participation and that input are better organisations for it.
Hi, Jason. I've got a quick question while you're on this subject of Section 106.
Yeah.
What's the best way to, as a community support providers, community group organizations, what is the best way to actually question or sort of inquiry about because the area that I'm currently living, there is a lot of sort of a redevelopment happening, and I don't see any sort of property developers coming out with sort of solutions on how they will best support the community. Would it be best to approach the council themselves because they're not actually forthcoming with that information, or would it be best to actually approach the property developers themselves?
I would suggest both. One of the problems with Section 106 that I've seen is that, particularly over the last 10 years, when councils are facing austerity, cut budgets and everything else, Section 106 money, they're almost feeling that it's theirs. That actually the Section 106 money should be going into infrastructure projects and into supplementing local authority budgets, which means going and trying to have a conversation with a local council can sometimes be difficult, because they might be sort of sitting there thinking, oh no, that we'd kind of got that cash lined up to supplement what we were doing. So to fund the development of a new road, or the resurfacing of a road, or you know, building some community infrastructure, councils have, there's been a bit of a growing trend over the last 10 years, particularly, I think, of councils doing that. So that conversation with the council can often be a tricky one. However, there is an amazing example of a Section 106 that has worked really, really, really well. And there's a brilliant man who I suspect now probably has retired, called Dick Moran, who was CEO of the Caterham Barracks Community, the Caterham Barracks Community Development Trust. And what Dick did as a local councillor, when they were selling off Caterham Barracks, and I think Caterham used to be the paratroop battalion, that's where they used to be based. They were selling off half of that land, the MOD, and it was going to be redeveloped into housing. And what Dick did with his position as a local councillor who sat on the planning committee, he then, when the land was sold to the developer, he said to the developers, okay, you are going to really take a very, very innovative approach to a Section 106 on this, because otherwise I'm not going to let it get through. Now, this was all kind of, I think he very carefully trod the tightrope between CEO of Caterham Barracks Development Trust and his role as a councillor, but didn't do anything illegal, didn't do anything, but he was very careful the way he did that. And he went to the developer and said, look, I know what your profit margins are going to be on this, and I know you can afford to give some of those houses that currently are there, some of the ex-military houses. And I also know what your profit margins are going to be, and that you can afford to build us an enterprise centre, and you can afford to build us this, that, and the other. And we know you can also afford to fund us for the next 10 years. And actually, for me, the learning out of that is to be in a position of knowledge and to negotiate fairly aggressively, because the Section 106 consultants will do exactly the same thing back at the communities. They will say, we reckon we can get away with 30 grand's worth of traffic lights, for example. So actually, I think talking to whoever is on the planning committee, so it will be an elected member who's sitting on the planning committee, it may be worth trying to build a relationship with them within the local authority. I think housing officers are probably more constrained in what they can do. But again, it may be worthwhile just trying to get some advice from them and say, what is the council's Section 106 policy, and how can we influence it? How can we input into it? And actually, in some ways, they might just be impressed that you know what it is. So I think that, again, that's a takeaway for it might be a CVS function. Sorry, Ian and Toby.
No, that's okay. Jason, if I could just come in here when you were talking, I was thinking, you know, it'd be great if maybe you could come to one of our community advisory board meetings and flag about Section 106, and just so it's on the agenda. And but we are having problems in terms of engaging Ealing Council, which is a real shame. Hounslow seems to be very open, and so it'd be interesting to see what Hounslow says. But the main people, yeah, we really need to speak to Ealing and their council, and they're just not responding or engaging. But moving on, I did have a question about, it's quite a basic question, I'm afraid, but it's kind of building on what Annabelle was saying about consultations and developers or the council. And the main concern is that, particularly in areas like Southall, when there's any sort of consultation, it's always in English. And I'm just wondering about the law. Shouldn't it be in community languages where, you know, a high percentage of people, English isn't their first language, the vocabulary used is unusual. So I'm just wondering if there's a legal requirement when you look at the community you're having consultation with, that it should be, there should be someone there to translate, or it's just kind of overlooked a lot of the time in Ealing, for sure, that, you know, notices go up or anything to do with consultations, it's all in English, and I just think it's fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, I think looking at it from a practice perspective, if you do that, it's bad practice. I think that there needs to be, you know, inclusion, accessibility, you know, adjustments that need to be made. So I agree with you completely. Actually, you are marginalising and effectively excluding a significant proportion of the community. So I think from a practice perspective, yes, it's wrong. I don't know the answer from a legal perspective. I don't know. It'd
be really interesting to find out, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I don't know what legislation it would be in breach of, but I'm sure there could be a case made. Yeah, I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that, but I am going to go away and look.
I wasn't expecting an answer, but I just thought I'd flag it.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting. Yeah, you've got me thinking now. I am going to look up. Is that a question coming through?
I think it just might be some background noise.
Oh, a bit of background noise. Okay. I'll just leave that up there. This is why local authorities consult. They do have some legal responsibilities to consult with their communities. But there are lots of reasons why they should consult. And actually, the reason I'm showing this is that we're a key partner. I'd say I mean, the voluntary sector is a key partner in this. We are a fantastic, and apologise for the business phrase, we are a fantastic route to market. We are a fantastic resource for them to get through to those harder to reach communities. When Shanjit was speaking earlier about the different types of people that she works with, that's a real asset for your organisation, that you've done the groundwork to engage with communities that for a council would be really difficult to connect with. So if a local authority really is committed to some high quality consultation, they will want to work with community partners. So I don't know if this exists within Hounslow and Ealing, if there are community engagement teams.
Yeah, Jason.
But if there are,
sorry. I do get a lot of phone calls from the council, different areas, where they try to consult me into their whatever the programs or what next step they want to do. They do involve me in a lot of areas, like housing and disability, mental health, and a lot of other areas. So I do support them with the views of the community. So basically, I speak for the community.
So if I can chip in there, that Shanjit is in Hounslow, so that's giving us some idea of how, you know, good Hounslow are. To my knowledge, Ealing do nothing like that. So it's very interesting working across two boroughs and kind of benchmarking them.
Yeah, I mean, Hounslow has a community partnerships unit, which is a dedicated responsibility to engage with the voluntary sector, whereas Ealing doesn't have that same unit. So,
yeah, it's funny actually, because I'm Kent based, and in Kent County Council, I used to be CEO of an organisation called Kent Can, and we were like the representation body for the voluntary sector. And there used to be all sorts of networks and forums within Kent Council that we would go and we would represent the sector on behalf of the sector. KCC, Kent County Council, just decided that actually all of those forums were too expensive. Funding us to do that work was too expensive. And they've now gone to a much more dispersed model where individual teams and individual directorates will try and engage individually with frontline voluntary sector organisations. And as a result, the consultation is shockingly bad. And some of the policies and decisions that are coming out of council now are awful. So the role that you're playing, Shanji, is really important, sort of representing. I suppose the challenge for you is just to ensure that you've got the consultation, the regular consultation behind you.
I do.
To really add that gravity and that credibility representation work that you're doing.
I mean, the worst thing is a lot of employees, they don't have a clue. They get into the jobs. They don't have a clue how to, they maybe don't have enough guidelines. And when they talk to us, we know more than they do about the community, about what is supposed to be improving, what needs to be deleting, how we can support people the best. I lived in the area. Sorry, I'm taking a bit longer time. I lived in this area for 41 years and in the same area. And, you know, I do know quite a lot about the area. Plus, I've worked within the community for last 40 years as well. So I know ins and out of the community. I worked with the council. I've got so many different talents. I can, you know, work with so many different areas of a community.
And can I ask, when they come to you, and I'm happy if you don't answer this, when they come to you for this input, for this contribution, do they pay you for it?
No. No, they never. They just, oh, we want to, they work cleverly. They're trying to get me involved with their ideas. We want your idea. So we want to do this. We're going to apply for some funding. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We want your idea. But no, they don't. They play very cleverly. But I'm not naive, but I feel I am giving back so much to the community. If I can help somebody to gain something, even gain their grant or their project, why not? That's what we are here for.
Yeah.
I mean, we worked with Hounslow. Hounslow had like a big, they employ consultants, rocket science, to have this consultation about support, have the voluntary sector support them in the recovery process after COVID. So they had about 6 focus groups on Zoom, which we helped arrange. So they have had a big consultation exercise with Ealing and Hounslow CVS with the voluntary sector.
Yeah. I suppose the point I'm trying to make really is that what we have built over the years is an asset, and actually we shouldn't be giving it away cheaply. You know, if a PR company has built up, for example, a different environment, but if a PR company has built up connections with reporters all the way across the country, they're not just going to give that away for nothing. They're not going to go to a company and say, well, we can get you in the Daily Mail or we can get you in whatever for nothing. Because that work is an asset, and that company will use that asset. And we're exactly the same. If we've got routes to market, if we've got people we can consult with that are happy to share their opinions with us, we have created an asset. And those that want to consult with those people should be coming through us, and we can be supporting them with that. I'm working very closely with a charity at the moment who work with people with disabilities, and there's a local authority here that just wanted to know what the because of the shutdown, they've committed to a lot of road closures and a lot of resurfacing work, and it's impacted on sort of, you know, access around the town. And they wanted to know how disabled people were finding it, and they went to this charity who's got somewhere in the region of 400 people that live in this particular area, And they said, yeah, we can do that consultation, but it's going to cost you £1,000. And the local authority said, we were hoping you'd do it for nothing. And we said, well, no, because these are the reasons why we're charging you that. This is what it would cost us in terms of staff time. And they said, okay, that's reasonable. Right, yeah, we can give you that.
I think what happens in especially councils and Hounslow is they're prepared to pay private consultants, but they wouldn't pay the voluntary sector groups to do the same work.
True, that's true, very true, Ian. I agree with you.
And that's because we let them get away with it, Ian.
But I think it's because the private consultancy groups, organisations, I think they sell themselves on having a higher level of expertise, and we can't.
Yeah, which isn't true. Having worked within some, it's not true. And I know Toby's worked in a marketing background as well. There's a lot of overselling happening in some marketing areas and some market research areas. So I think that's a bit of a learning point for all of us. Know our value.
I get the impression it's within council procedures or processes. Oh, we must go to private consultants. That seems to be there.
Yeah. I think we need to challenge that collectively. Maybe we need to do a bit of consultation on that.
I do think actually that I know I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent, but you said private and it just resonated that because I live in Southall and Ealing, is that actually I felt that the private also goes to healthcare as well. People, when I've visited IAPs, the first thing they tend to do is just refer you to afterwards to a private therapist, but we do have other NHS or public health based things, but it's almost like they idolize that private might be better, but they're equally the same. They provide the same service, and that's just my personal experience. I know it's off a tangent because it's nothing got to do with consultancy, but you mentioned it, and
I just think that I think it's a reputation that we've earned, and I think we need to challenge that moving forward. We are a crucial partner for local authorities. We are experts in our own areas, and we need to have the confidence in that. But that's going off at a major tangent. I think that's subject for a different workshop, how we can monetize what we do. But I just wanted to. I'll leave you with this slide just to have a scan through, because there are ways in which local authorities need us to support with their consultation commitments, and knowing who those community engagement units are, who the key players are within the council. It's crucial that we have a working relationship with them, and these are some of the reasons why. Councils are there to serve residents, and we can help them connect with those residents.
But Jason, they themselves don't even have enough guidelines what they're supposed to be doing with their job. That's the problem with the council jobs. I worked with the council and we were on the top of the list. Even they took my big picture or like a television, the display is in the passageway as we were going in, the days we were working with the council. But in those days were good days. We have a proper guidelines. We used to follow each and every guidelines. But in these days, they themselves, the staff even doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing. That's the problem. The staff need to be trained well better before they even, they need a better trainings for their jobs, honestly.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that within the councils as well, there's constant restructuring, teams merging, teams changing, people being shifted from directorate to directorate. It is chaos within local authorities at the moment. And of course, it's all going to get better, isn't it, after Brexit?
I hope so, because there is no loyalty. People goes into the job. We used to spend years and years into job. We enjoyed it, loved it. And in these days, youngsters goes into the job, second year, third year, they're out.
Yeah. So that they are, because they consult, they're an important partner to work with, but they're not easy to work with for some of the reasons that have been laid out there.
Yeah. I think council need to improve their services.
Yeah, I think everyone would agree with that. They need to get better.
Yeah.
So just as a bit of a pause and a bit of sort of reflection on looking at the definitions. For me, I think there are three learning points that aren't listed on here. I think we need to consult with our clients so that we can ensure we stay relevant and we stay connected to them, to ensure that we continue to deliver the services and the support that they want and that they need. So actually for us to consult regularly is really important. Sorry, I need to turn my hand around. Number two, local authorities, it's a key part of what they do is consultation, and actually we are a key player in that. We can support them, we should be supporting them, we should be influencing how they consult and the way they consult and who they consult. So, you know, we need to be building those relationships with local authorities better. And I think number three, there are private sector consultants, mostly around sort of developments and housing, who also should be consulting better. And actually, if we can engage with them and support them and connecting with them and do some of that with them, we can ensure that there are going to be better outcomes around housing. There are going to be better outcomes around some of the initiatives that are being brought into the area. So there are three groups really that we need to do. And in order to consult well, reach out, gather opinions, get ideas, make sure people can participate. And if you're targeting a particular group, make it possible so that they can participate. Don't put barriers in the way. Don't find ways to stop them from sharing their opinions and their ideas. Use consultation to inform actions. So ACT is an important part of the consultation. It's not just about gather information, analyze it, and then let that report sit on the shelf. Use it, let it inform change. And the final one really is good consultation is open. You go in without knowing the answers. And what we have seen in some consultation, which we've come to the conclusion that it's a PR campaign, is going in and saying, this is what we want to do. We want you to tell us that you like it. That's not consultation, that's just PR. I'll pause at that point. Any thoughts, any reflections, anything else that people want to throw into the mix?
That's what I'm exactly doing at the moment. I'm consulting people, talk to them what their needs are, and make notes of it, and then take it further to the local authority. Look, this needs to be done, that needs to be done. There are people who want to commit a suicide, so I go for urgent support. But do you get it? Not always. No. They're trying to, the worst thing is with the council or these authority people, they will say, go to A. They will listen to you. Now go to A. Now go to B. So all the day you're doing your head in by talking to people, getting nowhere.
I understand your frustration, and I do feel
this needs to be improved.
The same.
And
I think a really key action that everybody should take forward is just start conversations and then listen.
Also,
we're going to talk about some consultation stuff in a minute, how you can do it. We can plan one, but I think just as a general rule of thumb, whatever type of organization you're running, don't stop talking and listening, because actually, you know what? You don't know who you're going to talk to, and it might be that they just give that eureka moment, that light bulb coming on moment, where you suddenly go, wow, we didn't realize that was a solution to this issue that we've got. So I think keep communication open, keep talking to people, but don't be the one talking all the time. Listen, pay attention, because actually you might be getting those golden solutions coming through. So alongside formal consultation, which we're now going to go on to talk about, keep talking, keep listening, and write it down. Because actually, if you write it all down, you'll begin to see themes emerging, and you'll begin to see, oh, actually, there's a bit of an issue there in this particular location. We need to do something about it. And it's about creating that evidence. So going back to Peters and Dennis Waterman, your behavior is stay close to your customers, stay close to your clients, keep talking to them and listen. So that's a golden rule for everybody, whatever type of organization. Shall we at this point, because we've got an hour and 40 minutes to go, should we have a quick break and then go into how to design a consultation?
Ian, I'm sure I'll be back in a minute. Do you want to kick off the second part? Jason, I think we've got, before we do that, actually, I see Francisco's joined us. Do you want to just say hi, Francisco?
Hello. Sorry for the delay. I've been a little bit busy this morning, but at least I could catch the last window or the last chapters of the training. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Francisco, and we are building a Portuguese-speaking group here in Hounslow. And I kind of heard part of the training today, and as a coincidence, we just been working these last 5 days trying to accommodate a gentleman that ended up being homeless within our community, and the services that the obstacles that I found in getting in touch with the council and the police and the civic center is that is very similar to what Sanjit said, that is always passing along the message. You speak to this department and the other department, but at the end of the day, we got to remember that coronavirus is in place now, and there are a lot of limitations in terms of service that can be provided. And of course, that the list of calls or waiting list of calls that are happening right now is quite enormous. So even though it takes time to get things across, we were successful. And at the end of the day, I just want to call attention that, that was my experience anyway. That's the only thing I wanted to say.
Okay, great, thanks. And Ian, we were just talking about whether there's going to be opportunities on Zoom to talk to funders, thinking of Hounslow and Shanji. Is there anything in the pipeline? Like, I know we had a funders fair before COVID. Is there any plans for anything to be online?
You are asking me, Toby?
No, Ian.
Okay.
Ian. Oh, we can't seem to hear you, Ian, even though you've unmuted yourself. How strange. Well, don't worry, I'm sure we can, we'll go back to you later, Ian. Maybe there's a problem. Nope, still can't hear you. Never mind. Anyway, over to you, Jason. Do you want to kick off with the second half?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. I'll pick the pace up a tad on this. Right, what we're going to do now for the second part of this consultation is we are going to together, we're going to live plan a consultation running through the elements that we need to look at. Oh, what we got there? Oh, okay. Just got a message. Lexi's taking phone calls at the moment, but she's going to come back. So we're going to live plan a consultation, or you're all going to do it individually. And what I want you to have in your mind as we go through it is that you have a budget of £10,000 to undertake a consultation. So take your sheet of A4 paper, or take your sheet of paper, and at the top of it, write very clearly £10,000. Because one of the biggest factors to influence what consultation you will do is your budget. And the really nice thing about consultation is it doesn't have to cost a lot. But for this exercise, you have got £10,000 that you've been given by your board to spend on this consultation. Okay. So where do we begin? Well, you've got your money, you've been given the go-ahead by the board. The first thing you need to think about is the purpose. What are you trying to achieve with this consultation? Why are you doing it? Why are you going to go out and talk to people and listen to people? And what are you asking for their opinions on? So that's the first thing that you need to do. Be really clear. And I want you to write this down on your sheet. what are your aims and objectives? What is it you are consulting on? So what's the topic and what is it you're trying to find out? Because, and the reason that we need to do this is because that will shape what information we're trying to gather. It will also help us focus when we're talking to people. It will help us understand. It shapes the whole of the consultation. So what I'm going to do is illustrate a consultation that I'm involved with currently, just to show my thinking on it and how I approach it. We have pulled in, I think we've got £8,000 from the Fidelity Foundation. This is a real example. From the Fidelity Foundation to do some community consultation. This is the disabled charity that I'm working, the disability charity that I'm working with. And effectively what they want to know is from their clients, from the potential 200,000 plus disabled people in Kent, they want to know, what help do you need? What help are you currently getting? And where are the gaps? What other types of support do you need? So there are 3 objectives that they've got, three reasons that they're consulting. So what help are you currently getting? What do you need help with? What help is there available? And what do we need to do to plug those gaps? And what other support do we need to do? So they've got 3 objectives with their consultation. And it took us half an hour to get to those conclusions of what we were going to be asking. So you need to think about that very early on in the planning process when you're planning.
Could you repeat these 3 questions, please, again? What help you need, what help is available?
And what help do you need that isn't currently available? So where are there any gaps? What things do you need help with?
Okay.
So they're the 3 things that are guiding the rest of the planning of the consultation. Okay. Is there anybody who would like to share their objective, their purpose of their consultation?
Yes.
Francisco.
Yes. And this is very real for me, and will be probably my first real challenge within the group. Is to, at the moment, the number of existing Portuguese-speaking members within the borough is unknown. So my first, what I'm expecting to create a demographic map, which one will show me the number of residents and what is the concentrations of them. So bottom line is how many exist, where are they, and then the last will be having the map built. So that way I can actually gather the volume of habitants within the borough that are a niche for my organization.
Yeah. So your objective with this consultation is how many?
Yep.
Where are they?
Yeah. And then the last bit will be how to make the map. So, yeah, shall we say that? Can I say that? Okay, brilliant. Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else got any ones that they would like to share?
Yeah, sorry, I have. I've got this is something new for me. I'm trying to support people with the carers who are caring for their loved ones, and they are struggling, and I'm trying to take their points and take it further to the council or various of areas where I can get them a support from. It's a bit of a struggle. It's something new for me. So I mean, through this consultation, I will be able to learn quite a lot how I'm going to handle this new project for me.
Right. So this is about getting to know carers better. Is that right?
Yeah, also carers' rights, what, what they, and how far can I stretch their views and needs and, get them whatever they need as well.
So it sounds a little bit like sort of mapping out carers, what their needs are, and understanding better, so that you're then in a position where you can represent them better and so on.
Yeah, so this presentation is really ideal for me to learn so much for my next step.
Right. So I suppose really on this, the learning point is think about why you're doing this. What's the reason that you're doing it, and what would you like to get out of it? So think about the end result.
Get them
to allow
justice.
you to really focus. Michelle, have you got your own?
Yes, I have. Thank you. Basically, I said to your question, so I knew what my aims and objectives were before. So to reach and engage with leaseholders without the face-to-face that we now have, in order to formulate a leaseholder forum, because we haven't had any leaseholder forums now since March. I had to cancel the last one that we had scheduled, and to also collate ideas from them on how we could facilitate an alternative leaseholders forum.
Perfect. You're really focused with that one, and that really helps your consultation down the line if you can be as focused with this purpose, these objectives, as you possibly can be. So
right.
the more sort of focused you can be, the better it will work out.
Yeah, I know that £2,000 of that budget will go out in postage, because I know that figure from what I got from the council previously. But what I haven't factored into that is the other printing costs and officer time, because I can't send to them because I don't know their addresses. Only the leaseholder services know their addresses, so they would have to do the other bits. So I'm also thinking about, can I actually cut the costs down, because leaseholder services actually have an SMS service, and they have the email addresses of those leaseholders that are actually involved or have sent them that sort of information. So out of the 4,000, we might be sending out maybe 2,000 letters. Do you see what I'm saying? But someone has to manage it from inside. Okay, so I know where my costs are going. I know where the money is. Yeah.
I think what you've identified there is a really cost-effective way of doing it. SMS, you can do SMS surveys. You can engage people via SMS. There are lots of alternatives, and from my experience, postal surveys get a really
low response on postal service. So I'd be throwing £2,000 away. And that's just on the postage.
Yeah. And
right. Okay.
The way postal surveys have increased their response rate from the typical sort of 2% is by actually sending someone round to collect.
So we have to do like door knock and collect.
If you're going to do it purely that way, yeah. If you really want to ensure that someone, increase your response rate, then that's
right.
So Michelle, maybe that's something I can help you with. That if you want to do something in SurveyMonkey, I could help you set that up.
Yeah, SurveyMonkey support would be great, Toby. But I need to know from leaseholder services, if I'm to really hit this right, is how many. And I think the last time they told me they had 500 emails. And some of those will bounce back every time they send out. Yeah, it's the SMS that might just tweak it a little bit in terms of keeping my costs down.
Well, maybe you and I can work on this together.
Yeah, I meant to come back to you. I'm so sorry. It's been such a busy month. Yeah. Okay.
We'll work on this in the future together.
Yeah. Thank you, Toby.
Okay.
Right. So the learning on that is focus. Think about exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve with this consultation. The second thing is you need, again, before you start doing it, you need to really think about whose views, who is your community. That's what you need to think about. Who do I really need to get input from? Now, I think with Michelle's example there, we've got a very specific group. I think if the council undertaking a consultation, they go with a very wide group. They would as representative input as possible from across the piece. I think when you're planning it out, you need to really think about, who do I need to engage? Who do I need? Whose opinions do I need? And quite often people don't think about this, and they actually tend to think, well, I need to just spread the message out and get as many people as possible involved. Actually, sometimes you don't. You can be really quite focused with it, because once you know who you've got to engage, you then select the right methods for engaging with them. So what I would like you to do is just have a quick read through this slide, and then I want you to write down who your consultation would target, who you are trying to engage. For Francisco, I think it's relatively straightforward, but how you identify the Portuguese speakers, you might have to go slightly wider with your consultation to be able to find them. But you really do, for all of you, you need to think about, whose voices do we need to get? Who do we need to get talking? Who do we need to create some kind of dialogue with? So that we can, get their ideas, their opinions, their views, and so on. So that's the next thing, is really to know who you're targeting. So just take a minute or so just to write that down. And sorry, the other thing is, try and think how many people you would want to be involved in this consultation. Try and set a target. I'm a great advocate of healthy targets, because if you set yourself a target, there's a better chance that you'll actually hit it. If you don't, there's a chance that you might get significantly fewer than if you don't, if you set a target. Sorry.
Jason, I just wanted to ask you a quick question on that, really. How about if you actually don't know? For example, as like Francisco just said,
yeah.
You're trying to map out. So do you just literally go with a ballpark, or just?
I think in his situation, it's really difficult to define, because if you haven't got the stats to begin with, from ONS or from a demographic breakdown of the area, it's really difficult to know. So
I'm in a similar situation, because what's happening with ONS is they haven't actually sort of narrowed down the population. I mean, I can imagine what you have, Francesco. Somali community is exactly the same. We are just lumped with East African, and they're not literally divided to and it's really, it is like a needle in a haystack to find, and they can't even, they don't even know exactly the numbers themselves.
Yeah.
Can I just mention something into my own experience? I think that this is going to have to be a word of mouth, and is no other way for me. What I'm aiming of exactly who am I targeting? I'm going to target exactly the concentration places where I know they are, and then utilize those vehicles that already exist to actually implement an identity there.
I think that is brilliant, Francisco, actually, because what you've done there is you've illustrated the fact that you don't need just to directly target the clients. You also need, through your consultation, to target what I call gatekeepers or assets within the community. So it could be that there is a Somali support group that within the community that you would want to talk to them as well, because they are your route through to a larger number of people that you want to consult with. So actually, when you're targeting, it's not just the sort of the end user you're trying to get, it's also those gates that you can use to get through to them as well. And Francisco, you illustrated perfectly. It could be like there could be a local cafe, there could be a faith leader, there could be a whole range of different people that will give you access to the people that you're trying to target with your consultation.
Oh, true. It's not the dumb thing, is it?
What I experienced so far, and I have been trying to do this for like 6 years.
Hang on. We've got multiple voices on the go here. Could we just mute again?
Oh, I'll mute again.
Thank you.
From what my experience so far was that there is a certain validation from the people itself, but the challenge is to stop having the word of mouth only and actually gather it into a physical tool. And it grows very fast, but and then is to sustain it going, you can kind of scarce or empty out the pool very quickly, but and then you have to regenerate again. So in one way, you have to have a certain flexibility to move it on, to keep moving on it.
I agree. Just, I mean, one of the things that I've done in the past is we've tried to just to illustrate about the flexibility of how you target people. I worked on a program and we wanted to target parents, and actually the route that we took was we went through the kids. So what we did was we went to the schools where we knew the kids would be present, and we said, look, the kids' book bags, would it be possible for us to put a flyer in there that the parents would see? And actually that was a really useful way for us to get to the parents, because the parents would be working or they'd be out during the day. We found it very difficult to sort of connect with them. So we went through the schools.
Like a caca.
Through the Shanjit, would you mind just muting? Perfect, thanks. So what we did was we went that route, and it was a great way for us to engage with lots of parents. And actually, you might want to think in your consultation, do we need to potentially promote it to a different group in order to reach the people that we really want to speak to as well?
Well, Michelle's got a hand up. I don't know whether that was in relation to the previous comment. But Michelle, did you want to say something?
Yes, right. So I've gone through the questions that you've posed for us. One thing that you haven't done, you said identify barriers, but you didn't say identify opportunities.
Good point, yeah.
All right, and I'll give you the analogy of that is I attended last month's online presence, and it's about the characteristics and behaviors of your target audience, and we looked at market profiling, and in that I found that I could actually reach quite a range of my leaseholders through Facebook because of their age group being baby boomers and Generation X, and Instagram for the younger individuals, such as those in the millennials who are 30 something. Yeah. So yeah, I've identified those as opportunities, but my barriers are the paper, the SMS and the emails, because they're not held by me, they're held by the council. And I looked at the permissions, again, GDPR, back to the council, because I can't do the consultation without them. And I then looked at my stakeholders. So my stakeholders are, of course, first of all, the audience I'm trying to get to, which is the council leaseholders, then council leaseholders services, then resident associations, because they're actually there on the ground and they can help me.
Perfect. I mean, there are even sort of, some of those community gatekeepers could be community nurses, community healthcare providers. It could be if you've got PCSOs or you've got community safety. Police deal with a lot of people with mental health issues. If that's someone you're targeting, it might be that the local, the local police officers could potentially be signposting people as well and help with communication there. I think one of the barriers to consultation that's relevant to the boroughs where you're based is language. I think culturally as well, there may be some barriers as well that need to be considered as well. So I think it's really be clear about who you're targeting, and then just think about some of the challenges that you may have in building some dialogue with them. And again, it could be language, it could be It could be timings. It could be that actually, you know, everyone's out working and therefore you need to do your consultation outside of working hours. It could be that, again, with millennials or Generation Z, it could be that they're happier to do everything online. Just think about who you're trying to talk to and some of the things that you will need to consider in building some dialogue with them. So be really clear what you want to do and be really clear about who you need to talk to and what you need to consider when you're talking to. Okay.
Thank you, Jason.
All right. Okay. Right. Next slide. When you're planning, again, this is planning it. Think about timescales, because timing on all of this is really, really, really important. The consultation I'm working on at the moment, we know that right smack bang in the middle of it is going to be Christmas. We know that December is going to be a really tough time to get people coming to focus groups or activities like that. Of course, COVID is making it much more difficult to even consider that kind of stuff. So we're thinking about the timing of it really carefully. The kind of driver on all of this is we're thinking about the end point when we want to have the report ready to share. So I would suggest for all of you that if you're thinking of a timetable for your consultation, think about when you need to have that consultation report or output, whatever it, a video or whatever it is you're going to produce. Use that as your end point and then work backwards and set yourself a consultation timetable. We need to do this by this point. This is the date when we will have completed the questionnaire and we'll have captured all the responses and we can begin the analysis. The analysis it's going to take 2 weeks. We're then going to do some focus group work to just look at what we found through the survey. So go to your end point and work backwards. But be aware that there will be a lot of time needed on mobilizing, getting it set up, designing the questionnaire, getting it ready for distribution. Just the practicalities of it, it's longer than you think. So in doing that, avoid clashes with certain dates. Am I right in thinking Diwali's coming up in November time? So we've got Diwali coming up.
Yeah, Diwali.
There's Christmas as well. All sorts of things, festivals that are coming up that might, you know, if you launch something on a day when you know, there's something else happening locally, that might overshadow it. You need to think about those clashes. Include time for pre-launch promotion. Let people know that you're going to do a consultation, that you're going to be asking for their opinions. Give them a bit of warning. Invest a little bit in promoting it. Use social media. Use the word of mouth that Francisco's been talking about. Warm people up to the fact that you're going to be formally going out and asking for their opinions on something. Don't just hit the ground. Don't just chuck it out there. Warm it up. Get everybody aware that they need to be ready for this particular date. Like, for example, using a little countdown measure on Facebook or something like that, just like 10 days to go, 9 days to go, 8 days to go, whatever. Just let people know that it's there, get people warmed up. And if you're using those gatekeepers in the community, those organizations and others, give them that advance notice of when, so that they can pass the word on as well and they can get things set up. One of the things that I mentioned earlier, I think is quite important, is if you're going to go out to a survey, a questionnaire or a survey monkey or something like that, set a deadline for when you will no longer be taking responses. And then after that, put some time in to analyze what's come in. Have a look at what's come back from people, looking at the statistics, looking at some of the commentary that's come with it, and spend some time analyzing it, just looking into it and seeing, are there any themes emerging? Are there any kind of trends that we think, is there anything new that's come in that we've not seen? And put a little summary of that analysis together. And I would recommend off the back of that, get some of the people that contributed to that, some of your respondents, and run a little focus group just to get them to reflect on some of that analysis. Get them to reflect on, oh, this theme has emerged. I didn't realize that that was common within our community. I didn't realize that that was a common thing. Because you almost get a second input from them so that they can use their expert knowledge, their experience of the community, their understanding of the culture and the nuances of the community. They can have you can capture their reflections on that initial analysis. And sometimes coming out of that is some really powerful learning. And it's also a really powerful way of getting some more recommendations as well. So I would suggest within your timescales, within your timetable, you've got the warm-up prep, you're getting people ready, they're doing the questionnaire, they're maybe testing the questionnaire a little bit. Then you go out and do the survey where you gather the information. The third phase after that is you do some analysis and you summarize it. The next one is that you do some qualitative research, which is just kind of focus group based, getting some opinions, some ideas, people responding to that, coming up with ideas, solutions. And then you write the report, or you do the final, this is what we found within our consultation. I would suggest you structure your timetable a bit like that. Any reflections on that?
Yes, I wanted to ask how long should the sufficient time for analysis be? Did you say is it 2 weeks is sort of how much you would on average you need? Or
it depends how many people are involved. It depends how resourced it is. One of the decisions that you'll need to make is who does consultation. Do you commission someone to do it? There's a lot of push down here that we use academics to do research because it adds credibility, academic credibility to what we're doing, and I in part with that. If someone's being paid full time to do it, they can turn it around really quickly. If someone instinctively is skilled in identifying trends and so on, it can be done really quick. If it's a group or being done by a committee, it will take a lot longer. So I can't tell you how long it would take.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much.
In terms of
it just needs to be time away from the collecting of data. When all the data's in, it's there, it's squared off, and you can look at it and just pick your way through it and identify it. It might be if someone's doing it part-time, it takes weeks. But if you leave it too long, the data then becomes old, and you're working with old and potentially, out of date information. Sorry, Francisco, you're going to say?
Yeah. I have no understanding of the budget that a thing like these will take, because first thing we found out spoke about was the £10,000 that you have as funding. Like, okay, we look at the strategy and the skeleton of how and why and the time frame and all that, but actually we didn't look at, before we even start that, what is the budget we have and how is he spent it? What percentage of it is put in one place? What percentage of it is put it in another place?
Yeah, I probably didn't explain that very well. What I told you at the beginning is you've got £10,000. What I want you to do and keep at the back of your mind as you're going through and planning it is that you've got £10,000 available, and you can then choose how you spend that budget as you're planning. So if you think you need someone external to come in and do this, take from that £10,000 what you think the cost would be for utilising someone external, which then means you've got less money to cover the costs of doing the consultation itself. But yeah, the budget will always be an important factor in this, because quite frankly, if I had an endless budget, I'd probably pay someone to do all of this for me, even though I enjoy it and it's good fun. It takes a lot of time, and I'd just like to go, right, this is what we want you to find out. Go away and do it. Come back in 6 months' time. Okay. So those are the elements of consultation, things that you need to think about. Do try and make that analysis collaborative, though. It can really, some of the conversations that come out of that can really be quite informative. Right. Sorry, the next bit. Who actually carries out the consultation? Who will actually be doing the surveying? Who will be doing it? There are a number of things that you might want to think about. I mean, your options really, as I said, there's a big push here where I work that we use external academics, that we use people that will be completely independent from the organisation, who will have a commitment to being impartial in that consultation and will undertake it on our behalf. There's a half step removed away from that as a second option, where you get an academic to help design the consultation that you then undertake, so that they use their research expertise to help shape something that's robust. You know, you're consulting in a robust way. There are students, either undergraduate or postgraduate, that could do some of this work, either as part of a career enhancement opportunity. You know, they want to add something to their CV, so you know, they could be part of a consultation. They contribute towards a consultation, or they might, you know, might be interested in doing it as part of their research. You might want to get your own staff to do it. Big consultations can take a lot of resource away from the front lines. So sometimes just paying someone to do it for you, if you've got the money, if you've got the grant, it is a better way of doing it, rather than getting your staff into it, because all the staff have got to be trained before they do it as well. You might want to use a market research company, so a private sector company, to do it. Again, they will charge, and they will charge a lot. They're not cheap. But again, it's that independent external consultant that can add a degree of credibility to what's found in the report. I've worked with volunteers. I've run volunteer-led consultations before, where staff have overseen volunteers, and volunteers have gone out and got questionnaires filled in. I've worked with partner organisations where they've got questionnaires filled in for us and they've sent them through. I'll give you an example of a really, really bad consultation and something to avoid. I won't name the organisation, I won't name where they are, but they provided debt advice to people in a particular area. And they managed to pull in some sponsorship, £50,000 worth of sponsorship from a payday lender called Wonga, who I think have now gone under, Wonga. But Wonga basically offered to pay for some research, some consultation and some research into spending habits of people in this particular geographical area. And the net result of it is that for £40,000, which is what this sponsorship was, they effectively were given a database of people that were likely to want to take on payday loans at a time when the charity was was overrun with people who got debt, and most of that debt was payday loan debt. And actually, what happened was they got the money in to do it, but then they had to give their findings away to the people that were creating the problem that they were set up to respond to. And they paid that, because they've got a massive budget, they paid an external agency to do that work, to gather all that information. And all they were doing was, it was like, you know, turkeys voting for Christmas, really. They were just creating a worse situation, because the instant thing that happened was Wonga then got in touch with all these people that were susceptible to payday loans, offered them thousands, and then suddenly debt in that area spiraled. So how you resource that consultation, how you undertake it, and who funds it, it can sometimes be quite tricky. So sometimes keeping it within staff is a good idea, but sometimes actually letting external people get involved is a positive as well. So who does it? Again, you need to think about that. You know, does staff have time? Are they too busy? If it's no, Can you get someone else to do it for free? If it's a no, you've got to get some grant funding out there. And there is funding out there for it. Sports for All, the Lottery Small Grants Programme, up to £10,000, they will fund surveys and consultations and research. So you might want to get them to cover the cost of getting someone external to do it. So the things you want to think about, perform to milestones. Whoever does it, set them deadlines for certain things to be done. Again, that's why you need your consultation timetable. You know, we want all of the surveying done by the end of November, for example. I've got a thing here, multiple touch points. You might want to make the taking part in the consultation as accessible as you possibly can. Don't just make it that, you know, someone's got to come to you to get a questionnaire that you give to them. Make it that, you know, people can download the questionnaire online. Make it that they can go to a community partner and they can fill a questionnaire in. Just make it that people can access that consultation in lots of different ways in order to increase engagement with it. Whoever is undertaking it, make sure that they're communicating all the way through, that they're saying, we've got this event coming up. If you want to come and share your opinions, we're going to be here on this date. Social media is the platform for doing that, getting the message out there. If you've got partners that you're working with on the consultation, keep them informed so that they can keep spreading the word of mouth thing that Francisco spoke about. Use that to keep prodding people and keep reminding them that a consultation is underway and here's where they can engage with it. As part of the consultation itself, always say thank you. Always be grateful to people for their input. Say thank you for sharing with us. But really importantly, let people know what you've done with their input as well afterwards. And always leave space for unsolicited input. Don't just try and narrow it down. Keep the consultation process or period really open so that there is room for people to share ideas that are a bit out there, a bit strange, a bit unexpected. Because again, the consultation might result in a major change to this program that you're looking at rolling out, that you're consulting on. So that's just a little bit about how you do the consultation. The next slide is about, well, next two slides about some of the tools that you can use, the different ways that you can capture those ideas and input from the people that you've identified that you're going to target. So the first thing is social media tools. Very simply, on social media, you put a post up asking for people's opinions. People can then, in the comments boxes, come back with opinions. That's a really simple way of doing it. Within Facebook, for example, you've got polling tools where you can put options on and people can select their preferred options. So if you're saying, what do we need more of in Southall? It might be that you give them different housing options. Is it studio flats? Would it be townhouses? Would it be 2 bedrooms? Whatever. You might want to put that on as a poll on Facebook. Again, you promote it. That's one way that you can capture information. If you're at an event, you might want to look at using web tools and things like Menti. Menti is a polling tool where you can ask questions live and you can get feedback instantly. So if you're at an event and you've got a number of options that you're asking people to vote on, they use their smartphone, go to the Menti website, put in the campaign code that you give them, and they can then respond, and you can live see what people's responses are. So it's instant feedback on that. So you might just want to do a bit of Menti consultation. So the website for that is Mentimeter. So MENTIMETER.com. Mentimeter, and that's a live polling tool. It's really great. It's useful, and it's a great way to get some instant sort of snapshot feedback on a question that you may be asking.
Say that again, please.
MENTI Mentimeter.
Mentimeter. Meter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mentimeter.com.
.com. Thank you.
Okay, so one of the other ways of gathering information is through questionnaires. They can be electronic via SurveyMonkey, some of the other online questionnaire tools that you can use, many of which are free. If you're working with a very small group, you can use SurveyMonkey up to 100 respondents for free. If you get likely to going wider with a wider community and you're going to get lots of responses, then you need to pay for it, because there's nothing more frustrating than seeing 1,000 responses come in and you can only see the first 100 that have come in. So, you know, do be prepared to pay for a bit. SurveyMonkey's not that expensive. And again, if you've got a grant, put that into your grant request. Yeah, paper surveys, as we spoke about earlier, traditionally really badly responded to. You don't get a lot of responses coming in. One way to improve it is to say, put through someone's letterbox and then say, we'll be back to collect it on Tuesday. That pushes the response rate up a little bit, but not massively. It might be worth trying to get people within the community, volunteers or partner organisations, to carry those questionnaires and get their staff to get people, support people to fill them in there and then. That will improve the response rate. Surveys, well, questionnaire surveys, but very similar things. Focus groups, sometimes you might just want to work with a small focus group and just ask them specific questions or ask them to comment. If you're looking for qualitative feedback, which is more sort of narrative rather than statistics, I mean, the questionnaires can give you some good stats. If you're looking for just commentary, focus groups are a really good way of doing that. Does everyone know what we mean by a focus group? Does anybody not know what we mean by a focus group? No. Effectively,
not too sure.
Effectively, it's a facilitated discussion. You have an independent facilitator who will ask a question, get the group to contribute ideas, to talk about it, to share it, and someone will be minuting what they're writing. So it's a facilitated discussion around a certain subject with the responses minuted by someone. Sometimes observation is a really good way of consulting. When you sort of just see people's behaviour to things that are suggested, you can just, in a non-scientific way, you can pick up, you know, how people feel about a particular subject. So if you're asking a room about, we're thinking of running a befriending service targeting a particular group, what do you think? Just get people to put their hands up. You can observe the number of hands. You can get a rough, crude indicator of whether it's something that's supported or whether it's not. You can also, to a degree, when you're talking to people, you can judge their body language as well. You know, if people sort of demonstrate certain traits or behaviours, you tend to think, yeah, they don't like this. Okay, we need to think about a different tack. So observation is a useful tool to have in your armoury. Action voting is a very similar thing. You know, you can ask for people's opinions there and then. You can use SMS to capture people's votes. You can get people to put their hands up to vote. You can, you know, people to sit down if they don't agree with something. You know, you have to be very direct with the question. But again, that can be quite useful. If you capture that on a photograph of people with their hands up, you can again provide the evidence of that as well. I've worked on a couple of occasions with on consultations where we've got an artist in who it's normally within a focus group setting, but rather than writing down words, what they do is they use a massive piece of paper and they will sketch different ideas and different thoughts and different things that are coming up. And it's a really nice way of presenting the outcome of some consultations, that some discussions that you've had around a particular subject, or questions that you've asked, or ideas that you've tried together. And actually, they're really, if you've got a good artist, like the sketches can look fantastic, and it's a really good reminder of, you know, some of the feedback that you've received, and it's just a new way of capturing it. Yes, Francisco.
What I found that today people are very tuned into or very keen on finding is video presentations in cartoons. And I noticed that is a tool that is being used a lot on YouTube, even though to do small illustration of big books or teachings or how to. So is this new trend that you actually can convey information in a more compressed way and that is very connective.
Yeah,
one way.
The RSA do quite a lot of them on YouTube. There are a lot of RSA videos like that where someone, you hear a voice in the background and then someone sketching as they're talking, and they're fantastic. They're really good. The one thing I would say is they're incredibly expensive. They're really, really expensive to put together. I think they're great and they're a really useful tool for conveying information. They're just really pricey. Whereas the sketch consultations are great because you've literally just got someone happening live. Someone's just there sketching. And I think the last time we did it, we paid someone £200 for a day. And they were delighted because that was their salary for 2 weeks, basically.
Okay. Thank you.
Another tool that you can use to capture feedback or ideas are ideas boards. So, you know, post-it note, people would write down on the post-it notes and they can put their ideas or their thoughts on boards that are themed around certain questions. That's a really good way of people active and you know, really actively participating. Toby, what's the name of the video surveying thing that you?
Oh, just about to butt in to tell you actually. Perfect time. Yeah, it's called phonic.ai, and yeah, I was just going to say that I've put together this survey software, but it's very interesting that it gives you you can just fill it in like a normal survey, and then it comes to, you can choose some sections where rather than the person filling in has to type away, they can just press a button and record a video, or they can just speak and it records their voice. But I was looking at it the other day and no one has chosen to do a video, which is quite disappointing. But I do have some voice recordings, and it automatically does a transcript. Yeah, so I've got one that's for Tenants and Residents Association. I sent them out, but I haven't had a very good response. So I've managed to get some money to incentivize that. So it's a prize draw for £100 to go to the Tenants and Residents Association. And I'm doing a similar one for housing related organisations. So I'm going to reissue those with the £100 incentive. So when I send that out, if anyone who's on this Zoom training, please do fill in my survey. It's very short, and you'll see a demonstration of phonic software, and you might get to win £100 for your organisation. And that's enough of promoting me.
That's another plug. Fantastic. Another way of getting feedback is semi-structured interviews. If you're working with a very small group that you want to consult with, putting together doing the questionnaires in a semi-structured way. So you're not just asking rigidly asking questions. A way to maybe dig a little bit deeper is just to allow them to go off on a tangent and to them, which may then prompt you to ask additional questions. We use semi-structured interviews a lot in the evaluation work that we do. My colleague Hayley is brilliant at running semi-structured interviews. So whenever we've done evaluation of Toby's project, we've always done semi-structured interviews where we've spoken to clients, we've spoken to sort of community partner organisations, and just we've gone in knowing what we want to talk about, but actually we allow them to kind of lead the discussion a little bit more. So that's quite a useful technique to use. all of these, there will be definitions on if you go to put them into Google, you will get much more detailed definitions of what they are. I'm just giving you a very short summary of what they are. Public meetings is what most people think about when they think about community consultation. You know, using the local community centre is great, but you've got to get people there. So I quite like using things like pop-ups where you just go into shopping centres. You've got to get permission to run a pop-up, but you could you know, go in and set up a stand in the middle of the local shopping centre. You could go into council offices, you could go into libraries, you could go into places where people go a lot. Train stations will be a really big one as well. Potentially outside those, you might get permission to do that. It's just, you know, you need, if you're trying to go to the wider public, be where they are going to be. So use community assets, use community venues as much as you possibly can. Community events as well. So if you've got like a cultural day, a community day, if you've got a particular festival or a celebration day, piggyback, go along, go armed with questions, go with staff who will talk to people, go with you know, go ready to listen. Because actually, again, the watchword on this is go where people are going to be, go where your audience is going to be, but be ready to talk to them and be ready to ask. Insult in others' consultations. So if other people are undertaking a consultation and you've got something really small that you would like to ask, say, can I add a question in? Could you capture information about this? That won't cost you anything, because someone else is funded to do it, and they might happily go, you know what, that would be useful information for us as well. So yeah, we'll add that question into our consultation. So be aware if people are consulting, you know, say, look, we'd really like to know this as well. You might be included. Toby's just very in a very timely way mentioned about competitions. You might want to run a competition where you're asking for ideas and recommendations, where there's a prize for it. Incentives do encourage people to take part in consultations more. So if people can win something, it does up the response rate. So you know, you can get better responses. Host questionnaires on your own website. You know, you can use things like Google Forms, where you could put a questionnaire, embed it on your website. People can fill the questionnaire in that way, rather than needing to go somewhere separate like SurveyMonkey or wherever. Tele surveys or SMS surveys are another option for you to consider, where you literally just phone someone up and you do the questionnaire there live. Some people find that really intrusive. Some people like it because it can be done really quickly. You can certainly speed up the completion of the questionnaire that way. Radio phone-ins, if you've got a local radio station that people listen into, why don't you chat up one of the DJs and say, look, we'd really like to get some public opinion on this. Do it as a Jeremy, what's his name? Oh, who's the guy on Radio 2? Jeremy Vine. Do a Jeremy Vine type thing where you invite people to come in and discuss a topic, get people inputting that way. Open house events are really good. If you've got a venue, if you've got a you know, a location for your organisation, then run an open house day and just have an area where people can share their ideas. They can post their ideas in a little letterbox or something like that. Scenario planning and community visioning. This is something that's used a lot around housing and planning, where again you get a facilitator in and you get the facilitator to kind of lead people through certain questions about a particular topic. So, you know, what facilities would you want in development? What do we need to have? What's crucial? If we're going to apply for a Section 106, what are the kind of things that we would want that money spent on? What do we need? So it's almost get people to kind of, you know, create a vision of what a development would look like. There's an organisation called Locality, who are a national support organisation. I think it's free to be a member for smaller organisations, but they do a lot around this concept of neighbourhood planning, where they will facilitate going out to a community, and that community then planning what they want that neighbourhood, that area to look like in terms of jobs, in terms of housing, in terms of sort of green space, in terms of transport. They actually have a proven method for going out and putting a neighbourhood plan together. So actually, it might be worth connecting in with them and seeing what work they're doing in the area as well, because they're, you know, there's some good learning from them.
Could you say the name again, please?
Yeah, Locality, LOCALITY.
Thank you.
Another way to get feedback is on comment cards. You might want to dot comment cards all over the place that you know, dot them through the libraries, through doctor's surgeries, all over the place. People can then write comments down relating to your consultation. They then leave them with the library or the doctor or wherever. You then go and collect them. Of course, that's not going to be easy during COVID times, but in normal times, you know, it might be easy to do that as a way of collecting information. Don't forget to consult with your staff. Staff are really, really important. As Lexi made the point earlier, staff are the ones that are probably closer connected to our clients than management. And I would suggest that as part of any decent consultation, you should be talking to staff, because they will have decent insight. And particularly when it comes to planning the consultation, they will have some really good input. Talk to stakeholders. You don't always need to go to the end user, as I've said before. Sometimes, you know, talking to people that are connected with them. So if you're looking at a consultation with carers, you don't have to speak to every individual carer, every carer individually. It might be there are carer support organisations that you could talk to as well, that can give you a bit of help at various stages through the consultation. And the final point really with all of this, when choosing the appropriate method, is remember your budget. If you've got a big budget, you can probably do lots of these, and you can probably look at the more expensive ones. If you have a tiny budget, you might just want to try and choose the more cost-effective and the more focused methods. But also, and it comes back to the point earlier that Michelle made, which is remember who you're trying to talk to, who you're trying to consult with, because there may be methods within here that is preferential to them. They may prefer certain methods. Okay. Right, I'm going to skip through this fairly quickly, this slide. This really is what you do with the result, what you found from the consultation. The worst thing you can possibly do for someone is take their time. They give their energy, their ideas, their insight, their recommendations, and their solutions, and then you do nothing with it. So if you ask, you've got to act on it. So the first thing you do is you take that data and you analyze it. You look into it and you look at who did we talk to and what did they say? Are there any themes? Are there any conclusions? Are there any recommendations? Is there anything that we can take out of this that we can start acting on? Because that's the point of consultation, is to gather information that you can react to and that you can respond to and you can do something with. Now, one of the ways that you can use that consultation data is by disseminating it, sharing it with others. You do that so that you can influence policy. You can influence the work of others. You can let people know, look, we've gone out and consulted and this is what we found. You need to know about it. Most consultations come with a report at the end of it. There are some that are just focusing on putting a video together. I saw a really good consultation on, there's been some really important work up in Wigan, up in the northwest. And they've run this program called the Wigan Deal, where they've completely overhauled how they deliver health and wellbeing and social care services up there. And there was a bit of research into that. And they've used a range of these dissemination methods to get information out about the Wigan Deal. But the most powerful one is a video, where they just put a video together, and it's 10 minutes tops, where they just say, this is how we've done what we've done. And really, you know, a lot of people know about Wigan Deal off the back of that video. And videos are relatively cheap to put together. You know, if you've got a smartphone, you can put a video together, you can certainly edit it, and you can certainly upload it to YouTube and the like. So, you know, disseminate in lots of different ways. The third point there, big point, community feedback. Tell the community what you found out. Share it with them. When you're consulting, try and gather contact details so you can keep people in touch with what you found. Keep people engaged, because actually off the back of it, people might then suddenly say, well, I want to get involved with this. I'd like to volunteer to help with this particular thing that's come out of the consultation. So build that social capital. Use it for service, redesign or replanning. If you've consulted with people about a program that you're looking at rolling out and they come back and say, don't do it that way, do it this way, change your program. Don't blindly go ahead. Listen to what they've fed back. I've said use it for influencing as well. If you look at the commissioning of certain services and your consultation shows that the commissioning of that service is wrong, let the commissioners know. How you communicate that and how you try to influence, that's down to you. You can either be quite robust in how you make the argument, or you can do it in a supportive way. But you can influence commissioning by sharing the evidence of your consultation. As someone who does a lot of work in fundraising and business development, consultation reports are really good for evidence of need, proving that there's a need for a particular project. So if within your organisation you have someone who writes the funding bids, share your consultation with them, because it will give them the evidence that they need to be able to go out and get the money that will pay the bills for you to do the work that you're doing. And the final point there is, you said, we did. It's crucial that if someone has input into, if you've got someone to input into some consultation, you share with them how their input has moved on to action, and how it has, influenced the work that you've done. So never ever forget to thank people for inputting and share with them how their input has changed things or has used. I'll leave that for you to, because we're running out of time a little bit. I'll leave that for you guys to read later if you want to go back on them, back on the slides. Toby is recording, but I'm going to forward the PowerPoint to him as well, so that could be disseminated as well. Toby, is that right?
Yeah, of course, I'll be sending that around too.
Thank you. And I am happy for my contact details to be given out. I'll happily answer any questions after this. If people have got anything, they can email me. Right, some useful hints and tips. Piggybacking. Piggybacking is a bit of a marketing term that I've always used that some people don't like. It sounds like you're taking advantage a little bit. Piggybacking really is capitalising on some work that someone else is doing for the benefit of your work. So if there is a community event, or if someone's running an open house event or something, just say to them, any chance I could come along and put up a little display board with our consultation on? Or if there's an event that's taking place, you say, could we come along with a couple of people to go around and do some questioning? Or it could be, if there is a funding fair, you might say, look, could we run a little workshop as an offshoot from that? It's just, if something's happening, can you piggyback on it to help with your consultation?
I would have preferred, I don't have a bloody
Sorry,
clue.
Jason, I've got a quickie. Just
Yes.
to give you an example of piggybacking what we do, in terms of sending out our newsletters, so we do a newsletter, we wait until they're going to send out the service charge statements, and then the council take on the full cost. So we don't incur any cost at all, okay?
Absolutely perfect. Yeah, that's brilliant.
You wait until the
for example,
council have got particular publication. You've got to find out when their publication dates are. They tell you the deadlines, and then you get your stuff in, everything done, and it's no cost to your section of the organisation.
Absolutely, absolutely. There used to be, in an area where I lived, there was a free newspaper that was delivered by the post office. And we had a conversation with them and said, if we supply you with flyers, could they be inserted into this free newspaper? And they said, yeah, absolutely. Cost us nothing. Piggybacked on the fact they'd got it all set up. So look for piggybacking opportunities if you've got a tiny budget and you want to keep your costs down. Consult on the design of the consultation. So if you are already connected into your target audience in some way, and you're kind of planning your consultation, have a chat with them. Say, we're thinking about doing our consultation this way. Does it make sense? Do you think we're going to run into problems, or does it seem to be the right way to do it? So consult on your consultation before you do your consultation. It just embedding consultation behaviour in your organisation, which I don't think is a good thing. Don't let a small budget stifle creativity. I've seen some cracking consultation going on that hasn't required a big budget at all. Creativity tends to come where you haven't got a load of money to spend. Can anybody remember Innocent Smoothies? They started up with a really, really good story that the owners, they worked, I think they worked in the city, and they got sick of their jobs and they wanted to start up a smoothie making company, but they weren't sure whether they really should. So they went to a jazz festival and they had a stand where they were selling smoothies. Their consultation with potential future customers was they had two bins on their stand, one either side, and painted on them was no and yes. And what they said was, when they handed the smoothie over to the customer, they said, when you finished, if you think we should give up our jobs on Monday and do this full time, put your empty drinks container in yes. If you think we shouldn't, put it in no. And their market research, their consultation with potential customers was to take a photograph at the end of that event with an overflowing yes bin and a virtually empty no bin. And actually, they had no marketing budget for that. They went to that event and they got no money to go out and do extensive market research or consultation. That was the way they did it. And when they went for their bank loan to get things started, they showed that photograph, and that unlocked several $100,000 for them to kick it off. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to spend a lot of money. If your consultation involves events, make sure that you are advertising the next event at the previous event. So if someone intended to go to it, but you know that they couldn't make that event, then say, right, well, let them know that we've got another event coming up this time. So make sure that your events are connected, because otherwise you've just got to go through the process of promoting them all over from scratch every time. There's possibility to hide the consultation. So running a community fun day is a really good way of getting people in. And then again, you can hide the consultation by actually getting them to respond to a question without them realizing that they're filling, without having to fill in a questionnaire. So again, it could be you say to them, right, we'll give you a wristband. Again, on your way out, if you put your wristband in this bucket, it means you want more of these kind of events. Or it could be that you ask a question about, do we need a community centre in such and such? If you think you do, wristband in this bucket. So you're actually hiding your consultation within another event. I would say be non-judgmental and open throughout. Whoever's doing the consultation, just stay open to ideas. Sometimes people will come back to you with things that you don't want to hear. You'll have probably invested a lot of time into an idea that you want to consult on. Just be prepared that someone might come in and say, actually, it's a rubbish idea. A consultation can sometimes lead to that, but stay open to it, because if you do ask, well, what else should we be doing? You will get the right answer. You'll get the proper answer. Be prepared for conflict. If you're going out to the public and you ask their opinion, sometimes people don't give their opinion in a very nice way. Sometimes people get very angry. So be prepared for facing a bit of conflict. Equality of access is crucial. We go back to the point about language. If you're going to be writing a questionnaire in a particularly multicultural area, you might want to look at getting it rewritten in different languages, or you might want to get someone within that community who speaks both languages to translate and to help people with that way. So you just need to try and give people equality of access to the consultation, because otherwise you're marginalising people and you're not getting true voices. Digital technology is crucial because it creates so many new ways of connecting with people, and it is really useful ways of analysing some of that data. And as we say with things like Menti, you can get that feedback and that analysis instantly. Site visits, I don't know what I meant by that. I wrote this a while back, so you can that one. Focus groups are really powerful. You don't get statistics coming out of focus groups, but you get really good discussion, really good analysis, and you can get a real sort of pithy review of what might be a woolly theme suddenly coming into sharp focus. So try and make a focus group if you can, part of your consultation. As we said, review initial consultation, look at successes and failures. And remember that there is grant funding available for consultations. I mentioned Awards for All. There are other funders out there that will support consultations, particularly if you're going out to service users or clients, because you're giving them an opportunity to input. So if you think that the budget you've got available to do it is too small, speak to your fundraiser and say, is there a possibility of a grant to extend this budget? What I've put here is just a link through to some additional reading for you that you can have a look at your leisure. It's some of the sources that I've used in putting this together. The final bit from me, so that we've got a bit of time for Q&A at the end, is just some thoughts on things that I've done and seen around community engagement that I've used in consultation in the past. The human slot machine, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's basically been used quite a lot in community events where you get 3 people standing up next to each other and you get someone to pull a pretend arm like on a one-armed bandit, and people then go, then they pull a question out, and if you get three questions the same, then they ask that person to answer it. It's just a fun way of engaging people in conversation. It's a fun way of getting people to be there so that you can talk to them. So just go to Google and look up human slot machine. Hopefully that won't come up with anything too rude. But yeah, it's just a fun way of getting people in conversation. Coffee mornings are great. They're a really good way to get people in, because people, while they're drinking coffee, and serve it extra hot so it takes longer to cool down. People are there for longer. You've got more of an opportunity to talk to them, and it can be a really nice informal way of doing it. School book bags are dying out a little bit as schools are using blogs and digital much more to communicate with parents, but younger kids do still get books from school, and there's opportunity for community partners to put things into the school book bags if you're trying to target parents. Schools and universities can offer support as well. So if you're looking at engaging young people, the school might be happy to support a consultation. Universities might want to put some of their students forward to help with doing a consultation as a way of sort of, enhancing their individual CVs. You might want to look at getting consultations sponsored through a Section 106 or a community infrastructure levy. That could be one source of funding for it. At the kickoff event, I shared a story about an artificial ice rink that I used once for a consultation. I was working in an area with a population of 20,000, rural area, very dispersed, communities that didn't really talk to one another very much. But the way that we wanted to get a lot of people together, and we actually got 2,000 people to this event and managed to speak to 400 of them, was that we set up an artificial ice rink. It cost us 500 quid to get that in. We sent invites out through the schools. We got 400 kids to come along and have a go on the ice rink throughout the day. We got 100 kids to come and have a go on the ice rink throughout the day. We managed to speak to 400 people. It was the parents that we were trying to target, but we actually had 2,000 people turn up at the event, and that cost us 500 quid and a little bit of promotion. So it doesn't really have to cost a lot at all. Community film show, outdoor film shows are happening more and more. You might want to say, look, instead of putting an advert on, we'd like to just put a question on, and then we get people to SMS their responses to it. That's one way that you could do it, again, using digital. I've mentioned innocent smoothies. Community fun days are a really good way to get a lot of people in. And then maybe have people milling around the crowd just saying, can we ask you a few simple questions? just as part of a consultation. And then good old prize draws. Incentives are fantastic, particularly for teasing out ideas, because a lot of people are happy to share their opinions, but coming up with the solutions sometimes can take a little bit longer from my experience. So possibly running a prize draw, you know, give us an idea, win a prize. Sometimes that can generate some decent responses back from people. And that's it. It's been a bit of a gallop, I'm afraid, the second part of it. I suppose really in summary, I would say, let's go back to the beginning. There are 3 stages to the process, or 3 elements to a consultation. Make it easy for people to participate. Make it easy for people to share their opinions, their ideas. You know, create a mechanism for them to do that. It's easy for them to engage. Number 2. Number 2 is listen. Listen and pay attention to what they say. And 3 is get them to suggest the solutions, because they quite often the community know the answer. But then I suppose the 4th bit that we need to add in is act on it. Do something with it. Don't just consult and do nothing with it. Consultations only are valid if it leads to some form of action, either trying to influence or trying to set up something new or trying to deliver that solution that's been requested. So invite, listen, get them to suggest solutions, and then act on it. Don't just waste it, because otherwise future consultations will not be engaged with at all and will be even less valid. I pause for breath at that point.
I think Michelle's got her hand up.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I do. It's not so much a question, it's more about us. So most of the ideas that you've put up are based on face-to-face contact, but we're looking more and more now at it's an online contact. So what I've done is I've looked at your suggestions for tips. Like, for instance, you said about the human slot machine. Could that be converted online? And I think you have to take what we used to do and try and put it in an online context, because inviting 100 children to an artificial ice rink is one thing, and actually having 2,000 people turn up is another now, because of capacity, health and safety, and COVID. So I'm just saying, we've got to think in an online way. And using organizations to support those who wouldn't normally be able to get online to access it. So I know recently, I think Age UK were helping residents to engage on a council online information session. I don't know if they went round to their houses and gave them iPads or whatever. I don't know how they did it, but it was the only way that these people who had nothing could actually engage with the council.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we have to think, we got no choice. I mean, they're not opening up anything anyway, anytime soon. It's just going to get worse, because we're going into the second phase now, or a second wave, I should say. We've got to keep that in mind. Okay, that's me done.
Yeah, no, thanks, Michelle. That's really important, a really important view. And he's absolutely right. Digital tools that were listed, the digital tools that were listed in there, we will be leaning very, very, very heavily on them in the coming months, because of the situation that we're in, which is unprecedented. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Thank you.
Could I ask a quick question, Jason?
Yeah.
So I was just thinking about when you were talking about, for example, Section 106 funding and generally kind of community solutions. And from a housing perspective, I was just wondering if it's like a twofold question. The first is, would Section 106 planning work for things like co-op housing, like cooperative housing? And the second question is, have you ever worked in consultations with co-op housings? Because it's like, people are looking more and more into like alternative housing solutions, and particularly because councils are really stretched and MHCLG is not always clear with funding, people are starting to get more grassroots with their own solutions. So I'm just thinking, yeah, if you've ever worked on any, and would Section 106 funding work for those ideas?
I haven't, unfortunately. However, I am currently mentoring someone who is starting up an organisation that is advocating shared housing solutions.
Great.
I know you're calling it cold. I think she refers to it slightly differently, but it's where effectively people will adopt more of a sort of cooperative living arrangement in terms of creating the housing, but also in terms of living there as well.
Exactly.
So I will probably be able to answer the question very differently in about 6 months' time when I've mentored her through that.
Great.
Section 106, I think, is just about engaging with social housing. If I'm being cynical, I think any step on from that, I don't know if they would. If it was perceived as sort of individual benefit to be derived from it, probably they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Section 106 at times has been put forward as a bit of a funding panacea. Well, of course, the government have let the developers the reins loose, and therefore they can do a lot. So therefore there'll be more Section 106 money coming in. Section 106 is difficult to get from what I've seen. Local councils are first in the queue with their hands out for it. Community organisations are in their second. So building a really close relationship with the local authority, I think, is really important in order to access any Section 106 money. But yeah, when it comes in, it can be fantastic. But most of the time, it tends not to be in the form of cash. It tends to be in the form of in-kind. But if there's a building there and you make income out the building, worth having that conversation. Awesome. I mean, that's what Dick has done at Caterham Barracks. He's generating income from renting out the houses that they were gifted, from the use of the enterprise centre. That's where his money comes in. He didn't directly, well, the majority of the money that he got was in the form of bricks and mortar.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Welcome. As I say, you've got my contact details there, folks. If you do want to sort of follow it up with an email or a question on anything, I'm more than happy to respond. So yeah, thank you for your time.
No, it's very interesting. Thank you very much, Jason. So I'm just going to plug a few more things at this moment in time. So first of all, not this Friday, but the following Friday, the 16th, Jason is running another session, same time, and this one will be about evaluation and monitoring. And so, well, I can personally say that I've had some great advice from Jason in the past, because I used to run a program set in food banks in Ealing, Help Food Crisis, and it received, I think it was £400,000 from the big lottery. And one of the reasons I was able to continue to get that funding was my conversations with Jason about evaluating and monitoring. And from what I learned from Jason, I was able to keep on reporting back to the big lottery, and they were very pleased with the project. And so that's one of the reasons why I was able to continue for 4 years very successfully. So I'm going to send everyone invites to that training too. Please do share it with anyone else, particularly housing organisations. Please do invite anyone else to come along to it too. I'm sure you'll enjoy that. And the other thing I wanted to say is I'm going to obviously share this video recording and slides. I obviously have to edit the video a little bit, the recording, but I'm going to send you shortly a link to SurveyMonkey just to give some very quick feedback on what you think of this session. Hopefully you found it really useful, but please, it doesn't take long to do, but we really need that to send on to our funders, Trust for London, to show that you found this session useful. So please do take a few minutes just to complete that survey. And Ian, don't forget to send me the code so I can get into SurveyMonkey. So that's the end of my promotion at the end. So if there's no further questions, I'd just like to thank Jason very much for a very informative and really useful session this morning. So thank you very much. And I'll of course be sending Jason's contact details around as well.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Jason.
It was
Have a
very
good
good,
weekend.
Jason.
Bye.
Have a good weekend.
It was
everyone.
worth it. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.